Long before Meghan Markle discovered her Nigerian ancestry, Nigerian women had been rooting for her. That support has since been turbocharged, following her discovery. It would appear that the toxic British media continues to be oblivious to the Nigerian threat, despite various warning signs such as Dr. Shola reading Piers Morgan the Riot Act on his own show, which paved the path for his exit from daytime television, and Ngozi highlighting the covert racism that underpinned the royal family, which led to William and Kate being booed in the US. Undeterred, the racist royal media unwisely stepped up their racially coded attacks on Meghan to include Nigeria and Nigerians, thereby knowingly or unknowingly accelerating the demise of the Commonwealth that we have predicted. In a significant blow to the Commonwealth, the toxic British media have caused Nigeria's First Lady to publicly refute their false clickbait headlines that she had criticised Meghan's dress style. Before going further, we invite those of you who haven't yet done so to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification icon to be notified when the next video is uploaded. In our previous video, we predicted that Prince William was unlikely to succeed his father as the leader of the Commonwealth, because his continued attacks on Harry and Meghan would result in the Nigerian government not supporting him succeeding his father as leader of the Commonwealth, or pulling out of the association altogether. A Nigerian exit will be the death knell for an already dwindling Commonwealth. Totally oblivious to this risk, the royally enabled media hounds amped up their attacks on Harry and his Nigerian wife, and extended their vitriol to include Nigeria and Nigerians, as depicted in our second video on this topic. The rabid hounds have therefore increased the likelihood that William will not succeed his father as leader of the Commonwealth. A role that accounts for the majority of the bump on the palace website. The scattergun attacks on the couple included reports that they should never have gone on the trip, even though they had been expelled from the royal family and went as private citizens. Some claimed that Meghan should have visited the UK as well, even as others said she was not welcome. Many like Kevin O'Sullivan, presently with the Murdoch-owned Talk TV, who previously worked at the Mirror during the time that industrial-scale hacking was taking place, but testified to the Leveson inquiry, like its editor Piers Morgan, that he did not participate in, nor was aware to the best of his knowledge that any hacking had taken place, took the company line that the tour was a failure from the outset, while others appear to have reluctantly admitted that it was a resounding success. Kevin, the grumpy old white male, who is so far up his master's arse, that the irony of Meghan rejecting the servitude that he embraces so slavishly is lost on him, is ably assisted by one black male, appropriately named Simon London, whose token job is to whitewash the heavily racist notion that Meghan required Kevin's approval or validation to go on what would have been an emotionally charged visit to the African country that she recently traced her roots to. As shown in the clips provided, Kevin pours scorn and derision on Meghan's homecoming, completely oblivious of the racism and shallowness that he is projecting, as he makes a disparaging comparison of the warmth of the reception given to the couple, while unwittingly testifying to the depth of the connection between Meghan and her homeland. This paid white hack, who saw no hacking, did no hacking, and spoke no hacking, while in the midst of wholesale hacking, has the temerity to assume that by ranting and raving on behalf of his master, he can somehow cast aspersions on Meghan's visit to Nigeria, beyond his ever-dwindling herd. Here, just watch thinly veiled racist bigotry at work, ably assisted by a self-loathing house Negro.
Flying off to Africa to join Meghan for the gruesome twosome's weird pretend royal tour of Nigeria, which endorsed a dreadful country. Not once in their very regal three-day visit did renowned feminist Meghan mention her grateful hosts' total lack of women's rights. But as the dismal duo posed for the photographers and 43% Nigerian Meghan palpably loved being loved by the adoring locals, how hurtful must this tawdry spectacle have been for poor Charles? Well, Simon, your thoughts on that? I've got a point, haven't I? I mean, why doesn't he give up this pathetic pursuit of armed security? This is not to do with his safety, because he jetted off to one of the most dangerous countries on the face of the earth after this. About status, he's got nothing left in his sad little life to cling on to. Am I right?
No. Of course you're not right. I think that the reasons for him wanting the protection are not so much ego, but I think that sort of commentators like you, who continually attack him, and other people in the press as well, and the general public, probably make him feel quite paranoid about his safety. And I think it's probably a reasonable thing to feel that he may be under attack.
Well, if I'm upsetting Harry,
However,
good.
Caught up in their frenzied bubble, the rabid royal hound's lies became bigger and more reckless, leading to the outrageously false and easily disproved claim that Nigeria's First Lady criticised Meghan's clothing. However, this was in keeping with the established pattern, where the media propagate terrible racially coded lies about Meghan, and the worse the lies, the better the boost for Meghan when they are eventually exposed, and the greater the damage to the royal family's diminishing reputation. A simple internet search would have shown that the First Lady's speech made no reference to Meghan at all. A further internet search would have shown that Meghan's hosts, including the Director General of the World Trade Organization, were close allies of the First Lady, and as such there was no way she would have been critical of Meghan. Furthermore, if the royal hounds had any working knowledge of Nigeria, they would have known that Nigeria's First Lady was previously the First Lady of Lagos State, the state that hosted Meghan and her husband. So, the lie that they spun about the First Lady criticizing Meghan was so out there that simply providing the text of the speech would not suffice. A swift rebuttal had to follow. Consequently, the ill-advised attempt to use the First Lady to spin a malicious clickbait about Meghan has now ensured that Meghan's next trip to Nigeria will be hosted by the First Lady. This odious practice of clickbaiting Meghan, which had served them well in the domestic market, where they were enabled by the conspicuous silence of the royal family and the British government, will continue to backfire spectacularly, now that Harry and his wife are free to defend themselves, and Nigeria and Nigerians are solidly behind them.
Meanwhile, back in Nigeria, they were no doubt celebrating the semi-regal endorsement of their country, where self-styled feminist Meghan seemed oblivious to the lack of women's rights, as he enjoyed a game of the world's worst sport, polo, cocooned from the brutal realities of the nation he was making look good. Harry didn't seem too bothered either. Were the dreaded duo just useful idiots, unwittingly helping to bolster brand Nigeria? Again, you decide. Anyway, Mr. and Mrs. Sussex couldn't stop gushing about their dubious three-day visit in no fewer than 8 press releases, culminating in a tremendous hospitality on the first of many memorable trips. That seismic sentence set off alarm bells among Britain's diplomats who fear that Harry and Meghan's naive wildcat tours will send the wrong glowing messages about countries that should not be lauded on the international stage. Where next? Somalia? North Korea? After magically discovering she is 43% Nigerian, Meghan palpably loved being loved by the locals. That tour was irresponsible. It made a country that doesn't deserve it look good. But you have to plan these things carefully. You can't go to a country like Nigeria and say, this is a great country. It is far from that. As I said, where next? Somalia? Then North Korea? It's not responsible.
And as Nigeria and Nigerians at home have now joined the ranks of those in the diaspora to defend Meghan, continued and unrestrained attacks on her by the royal family and their hounds will lead to the end of the Commonwealth. So, the toxic British media have only succeeded in quickening the pace of the inexorable march to the breakdown of the Commonwealth. The royal family and the UK government will be well advised to note that it is not the visits of the non-working royals to Nigeria that are likely to or can ever spark a diplomatic incident, but the unbridled attempts by the royal hounds to smear Meghan and her native land. For example, in addition to the obvious lies about the First Lady, the royal hounds have reported that the UK government have reached out to Nigeria and other Commonwealth states, asking them to not host the couple in the future. It says everything about the royal hounds and their target audience, that they can conceive the notion that the UK government can tell the Nigerian government or people who to invite or not invite to their country. But anyone with any understanding of Nigerians will know that the couple's next visit to Meghan's native land will be on a grander scale and possibly include the presidency. How will the royal hounds spin that, given their reports to the contrary? Given the high profile of many of the women seen with the couple during their trip, there is the prospect of Meghan doing a future trip on female empowerment. What then? How many trips before the torrent of abuse from the toxic British media opens a gulf between Nigeria and the royal family that will quickly become too wide to breach? How many more racially coded attacks on Meghan before the royal hounds are so far gone that the situation cannot be retrieved? What will it take for the royal hounds to appreciate that Meghan now has a country and people that will defend her in a way that the royal family and the UK have failed to? Do the royal family appreciate that they are now guaranteed to receive a hostile reception in Nigeria and possibly all of sub-Saharan Africa? It is astonishing that the royal hounds are oblivious to all these issues which are obvious to many outside of the racist royal palace bubble. It is interesting that the royal hounds who pushed for their expulsion from the royal family are nevertheless consumed by how the couple are living their private lives. It is quite clear that outraged by the success of the tour, the royally enabled hounds have stepped up their attacks on the couple, and one can only imagine how apoplectic they will become when Meghan returns to Nigeria with her children. It would appear that unbeknownst to Harry and Meghan, they have outmaneuvered their detractors by virtue of Harry developing the Invictus Games and Meghan discovering her roots.